Welcome to Whispers in the Dark, where every story is a secret waiting to be told, and every secret changes everything. Tonight's story is about a girl who never believed she was special, and a billionaire who couldn't stop watching her. It's a tale of obsession, redemption, and a love that defied power. Before we move on, please click the subscribe button. The first time Raymond Wolfe saw her, she wasn't trying to be seen. She was a blur of trembling hands and wide eyes, juggling a tray of coffee cups too big for her grip. One slip, one nervous turn, and the drinks crashed to the marble floor like a quiet explosion, foam and lids everywhere. She knelt to clean it, cheeks burning, mumbling apologies to no one in particular. Up on the mezzanine, Raymond stood frozen, staring over the glass railing. Boardroom meetings and billion-dollar contracts faded behind him. For once, the world quieted. There was something about her, raw, untouched, unaware. The oversized hoodie. The way she tucked her chin. The way her fingers fumbled with the last cup, holding it like it was the only thing she had left to offer. She didn't look up right away. And that alone drove something wild in him. But when she did, when her eyes finally lifted and met his, just for a heartbeat, it was like a thread snapped in his chest. Soft brown eyes. She didn't recognize him. Didn't flinch. Didn't plaster on a fake smile like the others. She just blinked and looked away. That single glance lodged itself in his bloodstream. Raymond didn't know her name yet. Didn't know her story. Didn't know why the hell he couldn't breathe right now. But he knew this. She belonged to him. Raymond couldn't focus. Not on the financial projections flashing across his screen. Not on the string of messages from board members demanding answers about the Milan deal. Not on anything except her. He found himself replaying the lobby moment on the security feed. Frame by frame. The stumble, the way she'd curled in on herself, vulnerable but determined. His assistant thought he was losing it. "Do you want me to find out who spilled the coffee?" Raymond didn't even look up. Her name. Where she works. "And I want it by this afternoon." Her name was Chanel Hart. 22. Lived alone in a shared apartment in Brooklyn. Worked at a tiny coffee shop 2 blocks from Wolfe Tower. No higher education. No connections. No threat. But that wasn't what intrigued him. It was the way she moved through the world like she didn't expect anyone to see her. The next day he stepped into the coffee shop himself. It was small, too small for someone like him. But the moment he walked in, the air shifted. Conversations paused. Phones lowered. Chanel froze behind the counter, holding a cup half filled with cream. Her lips parted slightly when she saw him, like she'd forgotten how to breathe. She wore a plain black t-shirt, soft curls falling around her shoulders, apron wrinkled from the rush. Nothing about her screamed attention, but to Raymond, she outshone every woman he'd ever met in designer heels and blood-red lipstick. She wasn't polished. She was real. "Do you always put cinnamon in the mocha?" he asked, voice low. She blinked. "Only if they ask for it." He stared at her mouth. The way she bit her bottom lip after speaking. "I like cinnamon," he said. When he turned and left, he didn't have to look back to know she was still watching. That night, Raymond couldn't sleep. He had met supermodels. Dated women who were born into luxury. He'd shared penthouses with actresses and CEOs. But none of them ever made him feel this unhinged. This possessive. He wanted to learn the sound of her laugh. He wanted to know what made her cry. He wanted to see her face in the morning light, wearing nothing but his shirt. And more than anything, he wanted to be the only man who ever got that close. Raymond didn't like chaos. He was a man of order, of control. But ever since Chanel walked into his world, no, since she stumbled into it, nothing had felt steady. He started making excuses to pass by the cafe. Sometimes he stayed in the car, watching through tinted windows as she swept the floor or leaned over the counter, humming to herself. Other times, he walked in just to hear her say, "Good morning." She never flirted. She never lingered. And somehow, that made it worse. One morning, she was late. 5 minutes. Then 10. Raymond's fingers tapped against his steering wheel as his jaw clenched tighter with each second. He didn't question why it mattered. When she finally arrived, hair a little messy, cheeks pink from the cold, something dark stirred in his chest. She rushed inside, not knowing he was parked across the street. That same day, he placed a call. The following week, Chanel got a text from her manager. Someone's offering to invest in the shop. They want to buy out the lease and open a new location. Big money, no warning. Weird, right? She didn't know Raymond Wolfe had pulled the strings. Didn't know he was quietly eliminating anything that didn't serve her comfort or his access to her. The next day, he showed up right before closing. The cafe was quiet, dim. Chanel was wiping down the counter, lost in thought. She jumped when she saw him standing there. His suit caught the golden light, casting his shadow long against the floor. "You keep surprising me," she said softly. "You keep showing up in my mind," he replied, watching her carefully. She lowered her eyes, but her cheeks turned pink. He stepped closer. Not enough to touch, but enough that she could feel the heat of him. Enough to catch the faint scent of his cologne, smoke and sandalwood. "Are you following me?" she asked, half laughing, half nervous. Raymond leaned in slightly, voice low. "Do you want me to stop?" Silence. Her breath hitched. Her hands gripped the counter behind her. "I don't know," she whispered. He exhaled slowly, almost like he was holding back a storm. "Then I won't." And with that he left, leaving her breathless and shaken, her heart pounding in places she hadn't known were alive. The message came out of nowhere. "You've been requested to deliver to the 46th floor. Directly to the CEO's office. Name cleared." Chanel stared at it, heart thudding. The 46th floor was off limits. People joked about it. That it was where decisions got made. Where futures were rewritten. Where Raymond Wolfe ruled like a king with no crown. The elevator was too quiet. She clutched the drink tray like it was a shield. Her reflection in the mirrored doors didn't lie. Slightly flushed cheeks, nervous eyes, a few curls slipping from her ponytail. When the doors opened, it wasn't a secretary who greeted her. It was him. Standing there in black slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled just enough to show strong forearms. The way he looked at her, like she was both the question and the answer, made her forget how to breathe. "Come in," he said, voice low. She stepped inside. The room smelled like leather and paper and something else, him. "Coffee?" she managed, setting the tray on the edge of his desk. Raymond didn't move. "You're quitting the cafe," he said suddenly. Chanel blinked. "What?" "I bought it this morning. It'll be closed by Friday. You deserve better." Her breath caught. "You bought, Raymond, you can't just." "I can." "I did." She stepped back, confused. "Why would you do that?" His eyes locked on hers. "Because I don't want you serving anyone else. Not strangers. Not men who stare too long. Not baristas who boss you around while you smile and take it." He was close now. One more step and he'd be in her space. "This isn't about coffee," she whispered. "No," he murmured. "It's about you." Her back hit the edge of the desk and she froze. Raymond placed one hand beside her hip, close, but not touching. "You calm something in me, Chanel," he said. "And I'm not used to calm. I don't trust it. But I trust you." She looked up at him, really looked, and felt the gravity of his world pulling her in. "Am I yours now?" she asked quietly. Raymond's hand moved, not to her waist, not to her shoulder, but to the soft underside of her chin, lifting it gently. "You were mine," he said, "the moment you looked up in that lobby." Then he stepped back, leaving the heat, the scent of him, and the echo of that one single word, mine. She needed air. Chanel found herself on the rooftop terrace of Wolfe Tower, the city lights glittering below like stars scattered across the streets. She wrapped her arms around herself, the wind tugging gently at her curls. Everything was moving too fast. Too big. Too much. She hadn't gone home. Not after what happened in his office. Not after the way he looked at her, touched her, spoke like she was already his. She didn't know what scared her more, how fast things were happening, or how deeply she wanted to fall. She heard the door open behind her and knew, without turning, that it was him. His presence rolled in like a storm, quiet, commanding, impossible to ignore. "I didn't mean to scare you," Raymond said, his voice low and calm. She turned slowly, her eyes searching his. You didn't scare me, you overwhelmed me. He stepped forward, unhurried. I don't do this, Chanel. I don't chase. I don't explain. I don't feel. He stopped a breath away from her. But with you, everything is different. I think about you constantly. I rearranged an empire just to have you near me. And yet I still don't feel close enough. Chanel looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. Why me? He didn't answer right away. He just reached up, slowly, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingertips brushed her cheek, lingering just long enough to send a shiver down her spine. You quiet my demons, he murmured. But more than that, you make me want to be known. That terrifies me. Chanel swallowed hard, heart pounding. She should step away. She didn't. Instead, she tilted her face ever so slightly toward his touch. Raymond's jaw tensed. His hand slipped behind her neck, fingers threading into her hair as his thumb grazed her cheek. If I kiss you right now, he said, I won't be able to stop. She didn't move. Chanel, her voice trembled. Then don't stop. And then he kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was raw. Desperate. Like a man finally letting go of every wall he'd ever built. She melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt, pulling him closer. The world disappeared. There was no rooftop. No city. No space between their hearts. Only his breath against hers. Only her soft gasp when he deepened the kiss. Only the fire they'd been dancing around for far too long. When they finally pulled apart, her lips were swollen, her eyes wide. Raymond leaned his forehead against hers, breathing hard. You belong with me, he whispered. And I'll spend the rest of my life making you believe it. Chanel didn't go home that night. Raymond didn't ask her to stay. He didn't have to. After that kiss, she couldn't walk away, not when her skin still tingled where he touched her, not when the warmth of his hands still lingered on her lower back as he guided her down the elevator, silent but charged. The penthouse was dimly lit, filled with low jazz and the scent of cinnamon and oak. She sat on the edge of his sofa, still wrapped in the coat he had draped over her shoulders, watching as he poured 2 glasses of wine. He handed her one without a word. She stared at the glass. You're very quiet. I don't want to say anything that'll scare you away. Is it always this intense for you? He turned to face her. No. It's only like this with you. She stayed up with him for hours. They talked. Or rather, he listened. She told him about her mom. About how she'd taken care of everything after her dad left. About how she'd always been the quiet one, the one who blended in, the one who never got chosen. Raymond said nothing for a while. Then he reached for her hand. His palm was warm, but the grip was firm, possessive. Let me be the first to choose you, he said. She woke up in his bed the next morning. Still fully clothed. Tucked in gently. The silk sheets wrapped around her like a secret. Raymond wasn't beside her. He was standing by the window shirtless, his back a canvas of muscle and power. The way the light kissed his skin made her chest ache. He turned when she stirred. Their eyes met. He didn't say good morning. Didn't smile. Instead, he walked over to her, sat at the edge of the bed, and placed a hand lightly on her thigh, just enough to make her breath catch. I want to touch you, he said softly. But I need to know you won't run from what we are. She searched his face, seeing no lust there. Only longing. Raw and unapologetic. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. He leaned down then, pressing a kiss to her knee, slow, reverent, before looking up at her. I won't hurt you, he said. But I will own every part of you. Your body, your fears. I won't leave space for doubt. Chanel's voice was a breath. And what about my heart? His answer was immediate. That's the part one want most. Raymond didn't let her leave that day. He told her to take the week off. He'd already spoken to her manager. Of course he had. Chanel should have pushed back. She didn't. Not when his voice dropped low and he said, let me take care of you. He didn't mean it like a sugar-coated offer. He meant it like a vow. That night, the lines blurred. They were in his living room, her legs stretched across his lap, both sipping wine and pretending not to notice how close their bodies had become over the last few days. Her foot brushed his thigh. His hand slid down to her ankle, fingers wrapping firmly around it. Chanel stilled. He didn't release her. "I think about kissing you every time you talk," Raymond said, his voice gravelly. Her breath caught. "But I don't just want your lips," he continued. "I want the sound you make when I press you against the wall. The way your breath stutters when I touch your skin. I want you, Chanel. All of you." She swallowed hard, heat blooming low in her belly. "Then take me," she whispered. The kiss was different this time. Hungrier. Rougher. Less hesitation, more need. Raymond pulled her into his lap, his hands gripping her waist like she might disappear. His mouth found her neck, her collarbone, and the spot just behind her ear that made her moan softly into his shoulder. Clothes slipped away slowly, piece by piece, like secrets being unraveled. He worshipped her body like it was something sacred. His hands memorized her. His mouth claimed her. And when they finally joined, bodies tangled, hearts pounding, he whispered against her lips, "You're not allowed to forget this." Later, curled against his chest, Chanel whispered, "This feels like too much." He stroked her back lazily. "That's because you've never been truly seen before. I don't want to disappear in you." Raymond stilled. "You won't. I'll make sure of it." But the next morning, everything cracked. She walked into his office with breakfast, wanting to surprise him. Instead, she found him laughing, with a woman, elegant, stunning. Chanel froze at the doorway. Vanessa turned with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be Chanel. How sweet." Raymond stood quickly, eyes shifting between the two women. "It's not what it looks like," he said. Vanessa arched a brow. "We were just catching up. But don't worry, sweetheart. I already had my turn." The words stung like ice. Chanel left without another word and answer his calls. She didn't reply to the texts. She just ran. Not far. Not fast. But far enough from him. She crashed at a friend's tiny apartment in the Bronx, curled up in a borrowed hoodie, replaying Vanessa's voice over and over in her head. "I already had my turn." Those words weren't just petty, they were designed to hurt. And they did. Because no matter how softly Raymond kissed her, no matter how deeply he whispered her name, Chanel couldn't erase the fear that she was just another chapter in a long book of broken women. Raymond lost his mind in silence. Every hour she was gone stretched like wire in his chest. He didn't just call. He searched. Security feeds. Tracking systems. Every favor he was owed, every surveillance trick in his arsenal, he used them. Until he found her. Outside a corner store in the rain, pulling her hoodie tighter as she walked with a plastic bag of instant noodles and water bottles. She looked small. Unprotected. Not his. He pulled up fast, door already open before she noticed the sleek black car. "Get in," he said, voice low. Chanel froze. "Raymond, I said get in." She hesitated. Then, slowly she slid into the car. He didn't speak until the doors sealed shut and the engine purred forward. His jaw was tight. Hands clenched on his thighs. "You disappeared. You lied. I never touched her. Not since you. Why didn't you tell me she existed at all?" "Because she means nothing. And I wasn't about to let someone who doesn't matter ruin what I've waited my whole life for." He turned to her then, eyes wild. "I would have burned the building down if she'd laid a finger on you." Chanel's breath hitched. Raymond leaned in closer, his voice breaking. Actually breaking. "You think I fall for anyone? You think I give a damn about gossip or the past? You're under my skin, Chanel. I can't breathe when you're gone. I can't think." He reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he cupped her face. "I don't love like normal men," he said. "I love like a storm. And storms don't ask. They take." Tears filled her eyes. "I'm not a possession, Raymond." "No," he whispered. "You're everything. And I'll spend my life proving that you're not replaceable." He kissed her then. Fierce. Desperate. The kind of kiss that held apology and fear and ownership all in one breath. And for the first time, Chanel didn't resist. She kissed him back like maybe, just maybe, being wanted this hard wasn't always a curse. Maybe it was a choice. They didn't speak on the drive back. Raymond kept glancing at her, as if afraid she'd vanish again. Chanel stared out the window, arms folded tightly over her chest, heart pounding beneath layers of confusion. When they arrived at his penthouse, she stepped out on her own. He didn't touch her. Didn't speak. Just unlocked the door and let her walk through first, something in his stance different this time. Less command. More caution. The silence followed them like fog until she turned to face him in the middle of his living room. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I'm not afraid of how much you want me, Raymond." He looked at her, unmoving. "I'm afraid of losing myself inside that want. I'd never let that happen." She stepped closer, barefoot on the hardwood, her hands clenched at her sides. "Then prove it. Love me without caging me. Want me without owning me. Touch me because you feel, not because you control." Raymond said nothing. His eyes flickered, jaw tense like he was trying to hold in a storm. Then he sank down onto the couch, head in his hands. "I've never loved someone who had the power to walk away." Chanel sat beside him, resting a hand on his knee. "Then learn to love me the way I need to be loved." Raymond looked at her, truly looked at her. The softness in her eyes. The quiet strength in her voice. The way she didn't bend under pressure, but also didn't leave him in his darkness. "I don't know how," he admitted. She smiled through the ache. "Then let's learn together." That night, they didn't make love. They held each other. They whispered truths in the dark. She touched the scar on his chest, just below his collarbone, and he told her it was from the time he was 11 and ran away for 2 nights. She told him about the panic attacks she had under the sound of the cafe espresso machine. They unraveled, slowly, gently. And when they finally kissed again, it wasn't with desperation. It was with recognition. Chanel began to breathe again. Not just exist in Raymond's shadow, but stand in her own light. She took up a writing residency in the village. Started a blog about love and power, under a pseudonym of course, but her voice was unmissable, feminine and strong. Raymond read every word. And he didn't stop her. He funded her project secretly, making sure she had everything she needed, but never said a word. It was his quiet offering, a way of loving her without controlling her. Until the press found out. Who is the coffee girl now telling the Wolfe story? Sleeping her way to a platform? Chanel Hart's anonymous blog exposes Billionaire's secrets? Photos. Headlines. Whispers. The anonymity was gone. Her name trended within hours. Her fingers trembled when Chanel saw her face plastered across every gossip site. She hadn't written about him, not directly. But the world assumed. Because the world always assumes when a woman rises with a powerful man behind her. Raymond didn't call. He showed up. Walked through the bookstore where she was working a side job. No security, no announcement. Just him, in black with fury in his stride. "You should have told me," he said the second they were alone. Her eyes narrowed. "I didn't owe you control over my words." His voice lowered to something dangerous. "They're dragging your name through the mud, Chanel. They've dragged yours too, and you're still standing. That's different." "No," she said firmly. "It's not. You want me strong, Raymond? Let me be strong when the world turns on me." He stared at her, genuinely shaken. Because she wasn't breaking. She wasn't crying. She was rising. And something about that terrified and thrilled him all at once. That night, she stayed at her own apartment. Alone. Raymond didn't stop her. But he sat outside in his car until dawn, unable to leave. Watching her window like a knight who'd lost his sword but couldn't stop guarding the castle. Because he knew now, he'd found a queen. And kings don't own queens. Chanel didn't run from the headlines. She walked straight into them. She scheduled an interview, not with gossip blogs, but with a respected journalist known for her sharp mind and unflinching honesty. The show aired live on a Friday night, streamed to millions. Raymond didn't try to stop her. He didn't even ask what she was going to say. But when the interview started, he was already sitting in the dark, tie loosened, hands steepled in front of the TV. "I'm not a victim," Chanel said clearly. "I'm not a gold digger. I'm not a fantasy." She wore no designer labels. Just a simple black dress. Her curls down. Her voice soft, but unmistakably powerful. "I fell in love with a man most people fear. And yes, he's wealthy. Yes, he's intense. But what you don't see, what I get to see, is that his love is a battlefield he never expected to walk into. The interviewer leaned in. So you're saying he changed for you? Chanel smiled. He broke open for me. And that's braver than any change. The world paused. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Chanel Hart Unfiltered, hashtag LoveLikeWolf, hashtag The Queen Moves. First, women flooded her inbox with letters. Men questioned what it meant to love softly when you were taught to love with power. And somewhere, in that quiet penthouse, Raymond Wolfe cried for the first time in years. Not out of fear, but out of freedom. She came to him that night. No guards. No cameras. Just her. He opened the door, eyes bloodshot but full of fire. You made me proud, he whispered. Chanel stepped in, cupped his face in both hands, and said something that made his knees buckle. I didn't do it to defend myself. I did it because I couldn't watch the man I love keep hiding behind armor. Then she kissed him, claiming him this time. Not as her protector. Not as her billionaire. But as her equal. They disappeared from the headlines. No more paparazzi. No gala appearances. No curated images of perfection. They left the tower. Raymond bought a brownstone in Brooklyn. Quiet, ivy-wrapped, sunlit in the mornings. A place with creaky floors and a clawfoot bathtub and a small backyard where Chanel planted lavender and basil just because. She taught him how to slow down. He taught her how to take up space. They slept late. Made pancakes badly. Danced in the kitchen when the world was asleep. It wasn't a fantasy. It was real. But even peace has its shadows. One night, Raymond jolted awake, breathing hard, sweat dampening his shirt. Chanel stirred. Ray! I dreamed I lost you. Her brows furrowed. She reached for him in the dark. I watched you walk away, he whispered, voice cracking. And I couldn't stop you. No matter what I said. You looked back at me, and kept walking. She wrapped herself around him, her legs tangling with his, her hands stroking his back like he was something breakable. I'm here, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. You could, he said. You have every reason to. You're strong enough to live without me. She lifted his face to hers, their noses brushing. But I don't want to live without you. That's the difference. The next morning he was gone. No note. No text. Just a velvet box on her pillow. Inside, a simple silver band. No diamonds. No flashy inscription. Just the word always. Engraved inside. He returned late that night. Walked into the kitchen quietly, suit jacket slung over his arm. She was standing at the sink, still wearing his shirt. I didn't want to make a spectacle of it, he said. Not after everything we've been through. She turned, eyes locking with his. I don't need diamonds, she said softly. He stepped closer. But I need you. And when he got down on one knee, no cameras, no music, no pressure, just a man asking a woman if she'd stay, Chanel Hart said yes. Not because he was Raymond Wolfe, but because she knew what it meant to be chosen. And she was choosing him back, on purpose, forever. It wasn't a grand ballroom. They got married under the elm tree in their backyard. Just her, him, and a small circle of people who mattered. No photographers. No choreographed entrance. No dramatic speeches. Just lavender in the breeze, sunlight on her curls, and the man who once ruled the world standing completely undone in front of her. Raymond wore a navy suit, no tie. His hand trembled slightly as he slipped the ring on her finger. You were the beginning of every part of me I used to keep locked away, he whispered. Chanel smiled through her tears. And you were the fire that burned through all my fears. They didn't kiss like a fairy tale. They kissed like two people who had survived. That night, he carried her up the stairs like she weighed nothing. He laid her on their bed like she was everything. And when he made love to her, it wasn't fast or frantic, it was quiet. He touched every scar she once tried to hide. She kissed every fear he never let anyone else see. And when she fell asleep in his arms, he whispered against her temple, mine. Always. 1 year later, the brownstone was still theirs. But now the nursery glowed soft pink and gray. Chanel rocked slowly in the corner chair, their daughter curled on her chest. Raymond stood in the doorway, suit jacket off, tie undone, eyes soft in a way only she ever saw. "She has your eyes," he said. Chanel smiled. "And your scowl." He chuckled, then crossed the room, knelt beside them and kissed her hand. "I never believed in peace," he whispered, eyes on both his girls. "But then I met you.